Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of A Contagious Smile, where every smile tells a story. We have Chris with us today, who is a filmmaker. I can't wait to talk to him about that. He's the author of When Your Mind Screams. It is a fantastic book that can be found on Amazon. He has battled so many different things from anxiety and panic on his own, and he has come up with an amazing toolbox that I'm hoping we can dig into today. Chris, thank you so very much for finding time to be on here with us.
No, I'm really excited. I'm really excited to have a chat with you and hopefully we can help some of your listeners.
I hope so too. So your book, When Your Mind Screams, what was the reason that you decided to write this? What was behind it?
I started experiencing anxiety when I was probably my late teens. Right during high school, kind of transitioning into college. Um, I didn't know what was going on. I was kind of freaking out. I didn't really have the support, the emotional support from my mother and father. I really felt like I was on my own, and my sister was going through her own struggles. Um, so college really was when I was this storm, just exploded. The trying to figure out what's going on, going to see a psychiatrist. He told me, he kind of said, "Oh, you have panic disorder," and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, he told me I had panic disorder, and it was the most relieving thing I'd ever heard, because I was like, someone put a, even though now I'm like, I don't like labels, but it, for me, it was like, this is, other people are struggling with this, and it's treatable. And so struggling for years and years and years. Probably about 5, 6 years ago, I went through a pretty dark period, and I just started journaling, and I just started writing. I mean, I was journaling, but not, this was a little different. This was more related to um, uh, the anxiety, specifically the anxiety, and just like dumping this stuff out there. And then I was like, I wonder if this could help people in some way. Um, and not, I think also the other thing I realized when I was younger is that for me and my pride and my ego and in being a man, it wasn't, the anxiety disorders were more prominent in women, right?
Hmm.
And so that was a big thing. So I kept everything hidden.
Yeah.
And when I started journaling and looking at what I was journaling, I was like, maybe I could blog, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that. And then I'm like, why don't I write the book that I would have loved to have had when I was younger? Something, not, the clinical books are fantastic. There's a bunch of them, how your mind works, the amygdala, all that stuff. But that's all great. And I can have all that logic, but to actually heal, it's a different path,
Yeah,
you know?
it's a firsthand like recollection of what happened versus the textbook explanation,
Exactly.
which makes a
Exactly.
huge difference. You don't
Oh
have
yeah.
to have a doctorate to, but like I tell people all the time, I personally would rather talk to someone who's been through it, even though I don't want them to go through it, because they understand in a way. Like, I don't put out there anywhere that I have my doctorate, because anybody, you can read a book, but it's different to go through it, and you have a much clearer understanding. Like, you have a doctorate of hard knocks when it comes to anxiety and panic, so you've got one as well, and it's just a label. That's why I don't put it on my stuff. I mean, it's just a label. So you wrote this book to give people an insight of what it's like for an actual individual to go through all this. That's what makes your book stand out so much more, because you use your own creative lens in this, to show how you had your own way of working through and dealing with the response of anxiety. What tools did you create for your own toolbox in order to help you get through all this?
Well, the first, when I first, again, when this all first started coming up, I kind of got into, it wasn't really accidentally, but I wandered into a bookstore, but also they, sold records in CDs back then when they were selling those. And I was, a guy at the store steered me towards some, this really wonderful music that I could meditate to. So, and I know you hear a lot about meditation nowadays. I mean, it's become so prominent. Back then, it really wasn't. So I started looking into, really, how could I just calm my system down,
Mm-hmm.
in the moment. And obviously at first that would require me to do that on my own in a quiet place, um, and then I could take that into the world. If I'm in a stressful situation, I could kind of calm my system down. But to recently, what I did with the book was I was trying to figure out all the things that I've done, you know, therapists, psychiatrists, healers, astrologers, like all this stuff I did. I tried to figure out what were the commonalities between all of them, that the advice that they would all give me. And it really only came down to a handful of things. And so for me, it's like, how can I simplify this for people? And when I say simplify, it's what are the simple tools I could give someone? The practice is to do it. These things sound simple, but it's not easy, right? It's you have to like kind of do something on an everyday basis, to keep the like anything else. You stop going to the gym, you stop doing this, it kind of falls apart. So the number one thing, and I think that it is important for so many areas of your life and your physicality and the thoughts that are going through your head is breath work, some sort of breath work. And that could be a simple, Andrew Weil, who's like I think he was a functional medicine doctor. But he's done so many different things. He has this breath. It's called the 4-7-8 breath. And it's so simple. And you take 4 breaths in, you hold for 7 breaths, and then you release for 8 breaths. And you do that 3 or 4 rounds, and it really calms your system. Because I think if you can't get into a really calm state, or just less than the state that you're in, if you're in an anxious state, you can't really do anything. You can't really take the next step.
Right.
And so I think some sort of breath work, which I get into in the book, different things that you can do. That would be the number one thing, is to have some sort of breath practice, whether that's energizing or whether that's calming. And the other great thing about breath work that I found is that you really start to feel your body, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I'm sure from your experiences and all the horrific things that you've been through, there's a disassociation that happens, right? Mm-hmm. There's you leave your body, right? And so for anxiety sufferers, I think that you feel that come up in your body, you feel the anxiety, the panic. And what I do is I run to my head. How can I fix this? How can I do this? And I go to the place that is not the place that's been helping me. It's the place that where the anxiety starts. So, so you feel your body more, it calms your system, and it's huge. It's huge.
Absolutely. Have you ever tried sound therapy?
Yeah, I have. I've done, I don't know, like I know there's different types, but I used to do this. I think I actually spoke about it in the book. There was a process where I laid on this bed, and it was almost like put in like a cocoon, like covered in a cocoon. And then they had all these speakers around me and underneath me. And there was a certain tone that was, played throughout the speakers. And this guy would just leave me for 45 minutes and come back. And I was like, I just trusted the process. Yeah. Is that kind of what you're talking about, or?
A little bit. I was very skeptical, honestly. I met a gentleman named Matt Aponte, who was like an amazing, amazing person. And I used to listen to the Calm app, and I was like, yeah, it's kind of, and when I interviewed him, he was like, I'm a certified NLP, and this is what I do, and blah, blah, blah. And I was talking to him, and he said, you are my ideal patient. And I said, what? And he's like, yeah. And he actually has his own app, and he creates the sounds specifically for you. And he works with trauma, and he works with anxiety, and he works with panic. And he said, just give me a chance. Let me help you. And so I've been working with him now for, I think this is my 6th week, and it is night and day different. It really is. And he's such a stand-up guy. He actually opened up his app for all of our family of A Contagious Smile, and he's given them 30 days free full access to the app he created. And he will work with any of them any of our family members, because everybody with us is considered a family, that he will work with them and help them create their own individual frequency. And he does the breathing and he does it with you. Like he actually goes through
Wow.
it and does it with me. So different. So, I mean, I'm happy to give you that link if you want. It's 30 days free.
Absolutely.
There's no like requirement to do anything. You don't have to stay with it. I live by it. Now, I've honestly, Chris, if I don't listen to it, I feel as if I'm missing something in my day. Um,
Wow.
and then
Absolutely send it to me.
yeah.
Definitely.
And then not only that, but then he created an 8-hour one for me that I listen to while I'm sleeping. Well, I don't sleep for 8 hours, but it's and he asks you, what do you want to hear? Is it brainstorm? Is it fire? Is it this or that? And then he makes it and it gives you positive affirmations within it. The whole time. It's so relaxing and peaceful. The first one I got was 36 minutes and 1 second, and I would listen to it in the bath at night, and he would do every second of it with you, Chris. He was like, okay, take a deep breath in, and then everything he did with it. And I started to like really feel such a release of toxicity within me. And
Mm.
it was shocking because I was skeptical about it in the beginning. And now like I absolutely swear by it. And so he's such a nice guy, down to earth, and he listens, which I think is a big difference because today it seems like when you go to somebody, they hear you, but they're not listening to you.
Mm.
And that's the opposite. So yeah, I will make sure I send that to you because it's just amazing. And when you find something that works, you want to pass it on to other people to help them work. But that's just it's an amazing process. So yeah, that's definitely a sound therapy is I think is a huge tool.
And you feel, I mean, it sounds like you feel it. It sounds like it's a real visceral body thing too,
It
right?
is. It is.
Yeah.
He actually asks you questions when you first start with him. If you listen to the app, that's the app, and then you can actually go on and meet with him if you want. And he initiates everything individualized towards you, and it's amazing because I was like I said, Chris, I was skeptical. I was like, but he was, for instance, he would say, "Okay, I want you to close your eyes," and he puts you in a meditated state. He actually takes you to one. And then he says, okay, I want you to think of like one of the most horrific moments in this period of time of your life. Like he'll give you an age span.
Mm.
And then he'll
Mm.
say, I want you to tell me how you're feeling and where it is. He doesn't ask you to tell him what the emotion is or the emotion you're feeling. I mean, sorry, the memory you're feeling. And I was like, I feel like really heavy in my chest, like I can't breathe. And he was like, that is your heart and that is grief. And it's
Mm.
exactly what I was thinking about. And so he uses like the chakras and all this stuff I didn't understand. And it completely like you feel lifted from it. You feel there's a meditation to it. I mean, it's just, I could go on and on. It's amazing. It's
Wow, it
absolutely
sounds
amazing.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And I touch upon it very a little bit in the book about trauma therapy,
Yes.
which again I'm sure you're experienced with. And what I've realized, what I really realized probably within the past 5 6 years, is that just like the famous book, The Body Keeps the Score, it is in the body.
Yes.
Exactly what you said. Like, when I do these sessions, it's the therapist knows immediately when I go to my head. She's like, that's coming from your head. Just go back into the body because that is the escape route, right?
Right.
And so, and I noticed some listeners, it might sound a little woo woo and a little kind of weird
Yeah.
because it was for me. I'm like, I want answers. I want one, two, three,
Yes.
and I want to like do those things. Where this is like you sit there, you ask questions, and you let the body kind of respond.
Mhm.
And it's been a game changer for me. And I think that um, all the tools I have in the book, I think, are prerequisites. I think they all work together. Everything
Right.
works together. But what you're talking about, the sound therapy, all getting back into the body, and trauma now has also become a big buzzword. I mean, you hear more people talking
Yes.
about it because I think that you think that it has to be something as horrific as you've gone through, right?
Yeah.
It could be the way your dad or mother just looked at you in one moment, and that created an imprint, right?
Right.
And so there's a vast kind of spectrum of trauma and what it can look like. And for instance, I had a car accident, very serious car accident when I was younger, And I just did some work on it recently, and I was kind of asleep at the wheel. I had been, I mean, I look back and I can't believe it actually happened, and I can't believe that I was drinking and I was on other chemicals, and I went through this process and really realized how that affected me down the road outside of some of the developmental trauma I had.
Right.
This was like, I used to get this recently. I've gotten this almost like claustrophobic feeling, which I never had before. And I was like, well, I was trapped in the car, you know? And so again, it lives in the body. But yeah, that sounds wonderful. And I love music and sound, you know?
Yes, it's fantastic. I mean, like I tell you, I've become addicted to it. And if I don't have it, and he says, you just listen to this at night when you go to sleep. And now I listen to the one during the day and then I listen to the one at night. And I'm telling you, if I go so far during the day and I haven't listened to it, I start like, okay, I got to get this in. I got to listen to it because it makes a difference. And I've actually caught myself now, like, when I'm doing some of these interviews and I'm helping these people and I'm working with like a mom who has just been viciously attacked, there are triggers. And so I catch myself doing the breathing that he's taught me, and it helps me because I want to help them. And I don't want what I went through to hinder me from being able to help them get out and realize they're worth fighting for. So he has just moved mountains for me. And I agree 1,000% from someone who was like, what is this? Is this really going to work? To, oh my God, this really is going to work. It does make a
Mm-hmm.
huge difference. And it does teach you other ways to handle certain situations. I've never been someone who yells or anything like that. But if you get like tired or anything of that nature, which we all do, I mean, you just automatically find yourself doing those breathing exercises that he teaches you. And it just comes naturally. It's like a second thing. It just happens.
Yeah, and again, it brings you into your body. I mean, a lot of times they'll say, focus on the breath, and usually that can be your nose or your chest going in and out, but it does kind of settle yourself into your body. And of course, there's going to be moments which I also speak about. It's like there's going to be moments where none of that's going to work, right?
Right.
It's you're so jacked up, or your mind's rolling, and it's not for every moment, but there are, I would say, the majority of the time you can bring yourself back to a grounded place
Mhm.
just by some sort of simple breath work that you tailor for yourself. Like you said, you kind of he's tailoring things for you and
Yeah.
your specific needs, which is great.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. What would you like your reader to come out with when they finish your book?
I think that it's we were talking before we got on here, and we were talking about, I think you were talking about the support, the lack of support that
Yes.
some of this family that they weren't getting. And my sister, I've seen it with my sister and her, her mental illness struggles, and the mental health system is broken.
Very much so.
We, and there's not, in some level, I can understand it, because there's just not enough bodies, there's not enough people to, and sometimes there's a cost involved. But out here in California, people aren't getting the help they need.
Right.
It's really horrible, and I think that, so what that looks like now is, we have to do our own work. We have to, dig in, and I think one of the messages of the book, a couple important messages I think of the book are, first thing is, it's not the anxiety, it's not, and you could plug things in there, depression, um, other sorts of things we struggle with. It's not the actual anxiety, right? It's not the mind running. It's not the things we're feeling in our body. It's how we react to it, right?
Right.
It's how because we do react, we don't respond. And
Mhm.
that was huge for me, knowing that, okay, this is really uncomfortable, but I don't have to engage with it. I can, and it's hard. I
It is
admit it's
hard.
very hard, but that would be the first thing. So you have more power than you believe that you do. I
Mhm.
mean, for a long time, I just let the anxiety run me. I was trying to manage it all the time. Like, I just want to feel better. I'm not going to go to this event because I'll feel better, or I'll have a drink or whatever. So it was just managing it, just keeping it like at bay, right?
Right.
Now it's, how can I lean further into it, right?
Right. Right.
Like, how can I, engage with it and know that I'm going to be okay. My body's going to be okay. I'm not going to snap. Um, those are so engaging it, leaning into it, and knowing that and which would involve how we respond. I mean, those were the biggest ahas I've had recently. And it's really changed my life. And again, sometimes it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it feels like, even in some, I've been in some podcasts and I'm like, oh my God, I'm starting to feel like, I'm starting to feel anxious or whatever. And just let it be there. Right. And again, I know it sounds easier. It's easier said than done. But those would probably be the biggest things. And that there's nothing wrong with you. When I first started feeling this, I was like, I'm broken, something's wrong with me. Um, I'm a POS, whatever it is, it's you got to be kind to yourself, because there's nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong. If you had a broken arm, you would go to a doctor, you would go get that fixed, you would have someone help you through that, right? So it's no different. I mean, it's another part of your body. It's the mind
Right.
and the body. So
yes. I'm so glad you said that, because that's exactly the mentality that people need to use, but don't have an idea how to use it. So they don't know even where to begin to get to that point. And so that's why I love your book, because it talks about it from a first hand perspective versus a textbook. And I mean, yeah, the textbook's great, but some people don't have the mindset of understanding the medical terminology. And, it just seems so like non-specific. It's not personalized. It's just so generic when you pick up that book. Yours is not. I mean, you're doing a firsthand, accountability of what you went through and how you went through it and how you came through it, which is such a huge difference. It really is.
yeah, it's also when you say came through it, like, I still struggle. Like, I want people to know that it's not one of the other things, as I say, it never goes away 100%. I mean, people
Right.
without anxiety disorders, the label, they still struggle with anxiety. They have moments in their life when they struggle.
Right.
So it's never going to go away, but it's the way you dance with it. It's just a different relationship now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that's, and it almost becomes, there's a curiosity I have around it now. It's like, why am I feeling this now, instead of like, oh my God, I'm feeling that again.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
and then the other thing is as simple as we can keep this, the better, right? There's Dr. Google. I can get
Yes.
online and I can find every horrible answer I want to find immediately. Don't go there. Don't go there. That's a thing. You don't need to do that. You don't need that. It's really something that I think that people can work with on their own. Generally, again, there's people who are at an extreme. There's medications that can help for a short period of time. All that stuff is part of the mix. But I was on medication at one point. I found that I didn't need it, and now just utilizing different tools.
Yeah. How's your sister?
She is fantastic now. And it's as I the book was more of it was a hybrid. It was kind of like a memoir how to.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know me, so the memoir thing is, I put it in there, like you said, so people know, look, this is what I went through. And if I went through this and you went through some version of this, you can come out the other side as well. Right.
Right.
And so she, when I wrote about in there, I wasn't blaming my sister, but I said, this is what I dealt with. My father passed away when I was younger. I had to take on the responsibilities for my mother and my sister, who both struggle with various, you know, my sister struggles with many different things. And now within the past year, she's really turned her life around. And I was like surprised. And I actually told her, I go, if and when I do this next version of the book or another book, that I really want to speak to the remarkable turnaround that she
Good for
did.
her.
And we're actually having a relationship now, instead of me being her surrogate parent, you
Yeah.
know? So it's wonderful.
Yeah. Good for her and good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the age difference between you two?
3 years.
Oh, wow. You had a lot to take on.
Yeah, yeah, and she, I think she's starting to have a an understanding of what happened, and and I think reading the book, she really understood the impact it had on me, right? Um, but she's now dealing with, she had some abuse because she had told you she was on the street. She
Yeah.
was dealing with the PTSD and all sorts of other things that happened to her um, um, on her journey, but in a remarkable way. She's really become, yeah, it's just a remarkable turnaround.
Wow. Good for her. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yes, so you can find, if you go to my website, which is christopherglatis.com, everything is linked to there. Obviously, you can go to the Amazon link is in there. The When Your Mind Screams, just plug it into Amazon, you'll find it there. I'm building my socials now. Like, that's something I never did before, but I have that all kind of looped into the book and my filmmaking. And so, but my website probably is the best place to go, and that'll link you to every other place.
That is fantastic. Can I get you to come back on again?
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
appreciate
Definitely.
it.
Definitely. You're doing wonderful things. I mean, I knew a little bit about before we got on, but some of the stuff you told me before we got on the call, on the podcast, I mean, pretty amazing. So congratulations for all that, for everything
Thank
you're doing.
you. Thank you
Yeah,
so much. I appreciate it. And we will have you back.
definitely.
Thank you so much.